Good morning. Today is May 15th. This is Just Listen, hosted by George Goodman live. Welcome to the Friday broadcast. I'm actually in the Chicago area uh, today. I'm in Lombard, Illinois. Never been there. Great city, great people. And I'm visiting my daughter, her husband, and my two great grandchildren which they're keeping me busy and it's so exciting. I wanted to say that I've been watching a little bit of the local news and I haven't seen any commercials advertising for any of the state offices. So that might sound strange to you, but if I was a Republican, I would be advertising, getting people to know who you are or telling them to go out to your website. I keep saying that on the Republican side, I am a little bit um, puzzled to why they're not being more aggressive. So maybe in October, we'll see a commercial from a Republican running for state office. Don't know. As I keep telling you, the only person that I see that's putting out ads is the governor, JB Pritzker. So, wow. Okay, so what's happening now? So the legislature is actually out of session now, and they'll be back in a month and a half or so. So I'll let you know when they're coming back. Because when they come back, they'll be actually voting, and it'll be mid-June. They'll be voting on the stuff that they had in committee, and we'll see which laws will be passed. So I will let you know that. Now, I want to tell you the exact makeup in the House of Representatives in Illinois. So the state house is there are 78 Democrats and 40 Republicans in the state house. That's a significant um, number difference from the perspective that the Republicans actually have to partner with at least 25 or 30 Democrats to get anything passed in the House. Now, I'm only mentioning that because we elect people to be in the House and the Senate. So that's where, if we're looking at making any changes to get things in Illinois to change, that's where it would start at with us in our regions putting people in there based on policy. Now, state Senate, I would say it's just as bad. There's 40 Democrats and only 19 Republicans. So that's another super majority. So I hear people talking about issues. You can't complain if you're not voting locally to make sure that your voice is being heard. And it seems like that the voice that's being heard are the Democrats. And we have to quit blaming it on Chicago. I hear that all the time. Well, it's because most of them are from Chicago. Okay, well, maybe they are. It's still the same people. And what the Republicans are failing to do is to convince people that their issues matter. That's where it starts. So we need to quit complaining and start talking about issues that we share together. They are Illinoisan issues, and we need to talk to the other side. And where there's common ground, we need to compromise and maybe get a couple more seats so that at least we have some kind of voice. All right. So, legislative deadlines. May 22nd, the official Senate calendar marks this day as the final deadline for a third reading of substantive House bills. Okay. So they do that online. So they're pretty much out of session. Session focus, Now, as we know, and I'll be talking about this more, the state budget plan. So now they're in the negotiations, the Democrats are, because like I told you, it's 78-40. So they're going to be pushing their agenda. And I told you what their agenda was. Okay, so I'll keep you in the loop on that. Now, let's talk a little bit about what the candidates are talking about. They're talking about they are um, talking about focus on combating the housing crisis, regulating artificial intelligence, balancing the state budget, and pushing back against federal policies. All right, combating the housing crisis. As you know, and I've been talking about this, they are trying to fund more housing, affordable housing, which basically will be subsidies that the state um, gives to people who qualify from the federal poverty level to get assistance. For the greater majority of the people working, they're not going to see that. And I told you why. I talked about that federal poverty level that they extend even to the state of Illinois and what that does. Also, they were talking about regulating artificial intelligence. So they're definitely going to do that, meaning that when people are putting in data centers, they want to make sure that the investors are paying for water and electricity. And they also want to make sure that they're not draining the power from people who need it in the area. And I told you that we have nuclear power plants. We have the most in the country in Illinois, but yet we're not capitalizing on having energy. We don't sell it. We don't do anything. Balancing the state budget. As you know, they tried a couple of things like the millionaire's tax to bring in additional money, but that process they missed their window because the voters had to vote on it first, and then they have to amend the Illinois Constitution. So what does that mean? So they're trying to balance the budget. That means that someone is going to have to pay more. And currently, where do we get most of our income from? From people who are working, that income tax. We're talking about property taxes. We're talking about the grocery tax, etc. So we need to pay attention. And if we agree with how they're going to get the money, then there you go. The pushing back on the federal policies, that's basically talking about immigration and who gets the funding, etc. Okay, so um, so I'm looking down for a second because I'm looking at who's talking. Again, don't see much information about who's running for Attorney General or Secretary of State. So the people running for that. I wanted to note something, and I'll talk more about it in the coming weeks. So how about a strategy for Republicans if you lean that way? Go out to the website of the person running for Attorney General. Why is that a good target in my view? It's a good target because the Attorney General, whoever that person is, can challenge when the legislature, and in this case, Illinois legislature, is making laws, and then the governor signs it, and then they can contest it in court and give reasons why it's not a good law, maybe it's not constitutional, etc. So if we're looking for someone who can buffer for the Republican Party in the state, it would be the Attorney General, right? Because we saw that as the executive, the governor can only do so much if he's outnumbered in that legislature. So I want to promote voting and looking at the Republican Attorney General in Illinois as a buffer zone. Okay, so Now we're going to get into what in Illinois people are talking about. There's four key topics. First one is that affordable housing bill backed by the governor, the legislation would strip some zoning autonomy away from individual municipalities to expedite multi-unit housing construction. So actually, this is going on in several states, a lot of blue states, and what they're trying to do is build affordable housing for people who they say are under the federal poverty level. So that would be $15,000 or they're not working and they want to build new housing for them. It is expensive because they contract that out. So the contractors, and I've seen this my whole career, when you're dealing with the state or federal government, the prices go like double for some reason. Don't know why. All right. Candidate stances. Democrats argue that the state must bypass local bureaucracy to lower rapidly rising rents and home prices. In contrast, the local Republican leaders and conservative candidates are seizing on the bill, framing it as a severe state overreach that tramples on the rights of local town councils and communities. So that is very interesting. Um, but I would remind you that the Democrats don't have the numbers. So it looks like to me that this zoning and building for housing will probably pass in the state of Illinois. Um, and I would caution Republicans severe overreach with the high prices, I don't think that the voters are going to agree with you on that. You had to find some kind of middle ground and look at the people that actually affects and this perception that Republicans are for um, just letting the market, letting it be a free market. And if the price is high, well, then, hey, you're just out there if you can't afford it. You can't get elected in the state if that is your position. State revenue and projections. All right. So, as I told you, the Budget Analysts and Commission on Government Forecast and Accountability just lowered Illinois' revenue projections. See, we always get into trouble with these projections because they are projections. So, I would say that we need to do an audit to figure out what all they're looking at and also look for some opportunities of what they're actually wasting. And I don't think that they've done an actual audit in probably 10 or 15 years. All right. So Republican nominees are using the economic slowdown to criticize spending habits and fiscal management. All right. And so candidate Darren Bailey, who's running for the governor as a Republican, is leveraging his data to run on a platform centered around cutting property taxes and relieving the state's high cost of living. All right. So that is great. But also he needs to tell us how they can do that under the current system. And the Democrats are navigating the final weeks of the spring session to try to balance funding for major initiatives against cooling revenue, which means, and you guys don't think that's going to happen, that is, you have to, if you're not generating the revenue through business and fair taxing, you're going to have to ask someone to pay more. That's just how it is. And that's not scientific or complicated. Either you're getting it from making money for the state or you're taking it from people. So it looks like to me that they're going to have to take it from people who are working jobs because they were also trying to tax tips, for example, in Illinois, the legislature is talking about it. Again, people, you need to look at the policies that folks have out there, and you cannot complain when it goes up. And the federal government in Illinois has little to do with what goes on in Illinois. It's the people in the legislature and the governor's office who regulate commerce and taxing. And if we're not paying attention, then you get what you get. All right. So the artificial intelligence that I was telling you about, more regulation. Now, regulation means that if companies are getting more rules against them in putting in the data centers, they're going to pass on that cost to consumers some kind of way, somehow. Now, we need to dig in and see exactly what the legislature is trying to do. So Democrats are treating the AI regulation with emergency urgency, open citing a complete failure of the federal government to shield the public from its harms. Okay, and we're talking about using a lot of electricity and water. All right. And then Republicans are responding, warning voters that aggressive state level regulations will stifle local tech innovation and drive data infrastructure business out of Illinois. That's true too, because they'll go to a friendlier state. In general, we've reached a point in Illinois where business is supposed to pay the lion's share, because we've seen that in Chicago when they were talking about if you have over 50 candidates, charging someone per person. And also, we're looking at sports teams moving out of the state. And those two things, if those are allowed to happen, they're gonna have to get the money from somewhere. So I'm just cautioning you, you need to make sure that the water is not tainted. I understand that. And that if they're using a lot of electricity, they need to pay for it, meaning the investors of the data centers. But what I'm also saying that in Illinois, we are unique. We can generate more electricity. The reason that we're not is because of policy. For example, with these nuclear power plants, we could actually be selling that. Did you know that the Canadians sell electricity to California? Excuse me. But in Illinois, we've got the most nuclear power plants and we don't sell anything. And then with the artificial intelligence, we tell people that, hey, if you let them in, you're going to have less electricity. And then, oh, by the way, it's going to be more expensive. So please go out to these websites of these candidates and look at their policies. And you can also send them questions. All right. So I'll be back on Monday with more stuff and we can dig in. Illinois is a great state. We have great people. And what we really need to do is just start talking to each other and looking at people's policies. So have a great Friday and take care of each other and find someone to talk to within reason that you don't always agree with. Have a great day and have a great weekend.